Matthew Trenholm or Matt Trenholm. What a great time talking with Matt. He's an author. He's a father. He's a stand-up comedian. He works in healthcare. We talk about fatherhood right away. He's got two sons, and he coaches them. The first book he wrote is Fatherhood Like Motherhood, but for men. He's got a sarcastic, whimsical tone about him where he talks about the first how the childbirth went and his perspective, and it's very, very entertaining. Really enjoyed talking to Matt. His second book is a fiction book, Earth Invaders. He wanted to write something for his kids to read. It's like I say, fiction. It's again it's funny, but it's fiction, and it's very whimsical. I don't want to give a lot away, but it's about getting invaded, and they want to take over, and they find out that they're really the size of ants, and it's very, very funny. And we have a great discussion on some of his posts and healthcare. So that's his main job, and I ask if he could change it, what would he do? And it goes back to health itself. But it was a great conversation with Matt. He's a really, really nice guy. What motivates him, how he measures success, how he views discipline, the two synonyms that he uses, structure, and the other, I don't know if you'll be surprised with, but great conversation with Matt. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Matthew or Matt Trenholm, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. What's the greatest part about fatherhood for you?
Oh man, playing with kids. That's the best part, man. The best part is before when I was a kid, I played.
Yeah.
Then you become an adult, you get serious, you go to school, you get a job, and some of
Mm.
that play falls out of you, and then all of a sudden you have a kid and they just want to play. And all of a sudden it makes you a kid again. That's the best part. It's like yeah, I get to play all these sports again. When they were smaller, you just kind of wrestle around, and that's the best part, man. Play.
Now you have boys. You think it would have been different with girls?
Maybe a little bit, but I mean, I've got friends who've got girls. They just seems that they like to play too. They like to be
Yeah.
silly. They're just a little, on average, probably a little less destructive. That's all.
Mm. Yeah, a little less. Yeah, destructive is a good. Physically destructive.
Physically destructive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have girls, and I coached them both in soccer, and it was so rewarding, so rewarding. And like you said, you just kind of get back into it. Um, Now, why don't they play hockey? They play soccer and baseball, right?
Yeah, yeah, they play soccer and baseball. I mean, well, my younger boy doesn't really have an interest in hockey at all.
Ah,
My older boy kind of did, but man, the downside of hockey is that these kids got to be really dedicated and really want it because most ice times are at like 6 in the morning before
yep.
school. And so if they're not, I basically kind of said to them, if you really want it, you need to be dragging me out of bed at 6 in the morning to get there. And I don't really think they did, to be honest. But they, yeah, I mean, right now I'm coaching soccer for my youngest son. My oldest boy just started playing basketball, and
Ah.
he really seems to like basketball. So it's kind of like, to me, it was dabble everything. Like, we did try hockey, but it was dabble everything out there, see what sticks, and this is kind of what's sticking.
And it's so important for, we see so many youth just inside and gaming and not getting out there. I mean, when you and I were younger, a punishment was for us to be inside, right? I needed, I needed to get out there. And it's great that they're trying so many different sports. I remember when my oldest said, I don't want to play soccer anymore. I said, I completely understand. What are you going to substitute it with? You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to do it. Make sure you put something, because for the rest of your life, you're going to exercise. You're going to need to get sweaty and get exercise. So she did replace it with that. It's just such a great example that you're setting.
Oh, for sure, man. It's like, that's it. All it is about being active, love a sport. And there, you meet the odd parent who thinks that their kid's going pro at something and they're being serious. I'm like, let's not ruin it. Let's have fun. No one's going pro. You just want someone to be healthy for life and enjoy playing sports. And sports brings like camaraderie, and you make
Does.
friends. Like, there's so much to it. Literally across the street from my house, like right now as we speak, there's a park right there, and there's a plus 50 men's soccer game happening right now. These
Wow.
guys are still getting at it, and I love seeing that stuff. It's just, it's fit and fun for life, man.
Yeah, it really is. And those team sports, like you said, the camaraderie, because you're a team and you practice together, you play together, and it's so beneficial for children. It's so beneficial.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
And it's
play.
that's the key, is dabbling them in things, seeing what they like. It's not,
Yeah.
some dads are like, well, I really liked soccer, so you're gonna play soccer.
Mm.
And then that kid doesn't like soccer. Maybe they want
No.
to dribble a basketball. Maybe, just, it's like letting them find their own place, and then just supporting that.
But there's plenty of fathers out there that like to coach and like to be a great father, but you write books about it. So I don't know where you are. You're in you're healthcare, you're a father, you're an author, you're so many things. I don't know where your ranking is, but you wrote two books, one on fatherhood, like motherhood, but just for men. And then in Earth Invaders was like a fiction type thing for like that middle school type age, fiction, which is really cool as well. So what made you branch out there?
So I kind of discovered about maybe 10 years ago or so that I liked writing,
Yeah.
and I also really like entertaining people.
Mm.
Uh, I also figure, it's kind of a self diagnosis, but I like to say I may have adult onset ADHD.
Uh,
I kind of like to dip my toe in everything. But what I started doing is, one of my buddies about 10 years ago, he started working at this publishing company, and just because he's a buddy, so we like to take the piss out of each other. I'd send him fake submissions under ridiculous names, and he didn't know where they were coming from, but he started printing them out and sharing them around the office. Eventually he found out that they were coming from me, and he was like, man, if you can keep doing this, they're going to
huh.
publish this. Like, this is hilarious, you're making everyone laugh. And so then I think a little positive feedback, finding that I liked it, and then I also find it cathartic. Like with my fatherhood book, it took years to write this, because it would be, something would happen. Often it's something that in the moment would frustrate me, but I always think everything that frustrates me is going to be funny at some point. And then I'd write about it and just put it together. And then I thought, you know what, I've got something here that's like, to me, a book that's like a fatherhood support network book. Like,
Mm.
here's kind of the dirty, the funny, and everything in between about it. Here's my experience. I wanted to put it out there and just like have something that's relatable, or that if you're going to be a father, here's what you can kind of expect in real terms. I'm not trying to, give you like the psychologist perspective of childhood. I'm just being like, here's what it was like. Here's what it was like for me.
Matt, how different is parenting from men from women?
Well, to be honest, I think we have it a little easier than women do.
Mm.
I think that's the main difference. When it seems when kids are really upset or want to be like their worst self at the moment, that goes to mom, not
Huh.
dad. I think moms get a bit more crying, a bit more whining than dads do, and it's probably just because on average, men are a little less I would say a little less receptive and a little less patient to that just by nature. And so naturally, that plus, I mean, when they're babies, we don't really have much purpose. We don't feed the babies. Like that's they want food. Moms can feed them. It's amazing, but we can't do that. So I figured my job then is to just from the start was to kind of relief, I can change some diapers and then we can play a bit. I can read to the kids and then you slowly, take more responsibilities. Now I'm a chauffeur and a coach. It's
Mm. I don't know if we can ever appreciate, Matt, the bond of a mother and child, right? We can't truly appreciate that, right? We could try, but
I don't think so. It's innate. Like I mean, as much as those children love their dads, there's just that's something special. And I mean, maybe it's because they literally grew inside their
yeah,
mothers,
yeah.
Like it's I mean, when you think about it, it's truly amazing what women can do that we can't do. They can
Mm.
grow and create life and feed and sustain that life all with their own bodies. We can't do that.
My
We're
goodness.
like we're like, the sideshow. That's what we are.
Pretty much. Yeah, to help to support and like you say, do our best to be there. So why write? I mean, you say so you took a while, you got these stories together, you have Buddy in publishing, but then did you start blogging and then assemble the blogs together? Did you think of some stories? Like how did it create it? How did you do it?
So I dabbled in that. I tried to blog for a little bit. Then I thought maybe I'll do a podcast and I'll tell stories on the podcast. But that was part of me being overly ambitious
Mm,
in the sense that I didn't have enough time to fully commit to all of these things
right.
because I do work full time in healthcare
Yeah.
and I do have kids and yeah, like you established, like I coach soccer and baseball. Those are a lot of things. So I didn't feel like if I say had my own podcast where I did storytelling that I'd be committed enough to make it good.
Mm,
And I didn't want to do anything kind of like half-assed. So but what I do is write. I do enjoy writing and I've become a skilled writer. So I basically just then kept putting these together and then you in the writing process you review, you edit, you take out, I'm kind of rambling here, let's get rid of that. And I've put together something that I think is highly entertaining for not just fathers, for all parents. I just got feedback from a mother who read the book, and
mm.
she told me she was just like would have to put it down because she'd just burst out laughing and couldn't keep reading anymore. Getting like a male perspective on some of these things, like the male perspective on childbirth, on what that was like. She
Yeah.
she just thought that was absolutely hilarious to hear my perspective of going through that entire process.
And you're self-published, self-edited, you did it all yourself.
Yeah, I did. That was a bit of an undertaking.
Yeah.
Next time, I'm probably going to try a little harder to see if I can get it published by a publisher where I don't have to do all of the work myself.
Mm, mm,
Because what I found out there is that while I can do it, I really truly just enjoy writing and storytelling, and not as much the everything else that goes around with it, such as like creating cover designs and that type of stuff. That's not
mm.
really my passion. So
And you say, I mean, it's for men, the book, but not women can read it, mothers can read it. What do you want the reader to take away from it, from reading it?
I want the reader to take away that if they are a parent, they're not alone. That the things, the trials and tribulations they've had, we all share. we sometimes we think we're siloed off as parents, and oh, I'm the only one experiencing a child who's throwing a temper tantrum because he didn't get to drop the banana in the smoothie this morning. But no, you're not alone. We all have been through all of these things. So it's kind of like it's that, and it's trying to make people laugh, put a smile on their face, and it goes also into expected parents. Here's kind of a guide. Like honestly, it would be a guide. Here's what to expect. Here's different stages in life, what you can expect in each stage, and how it affected me. And then I just give some personal takes on things too, observations of different parenting styles and that type of thing.
Absolutely, and it's serious but whimsical at the same time. I remember when my first was born and it was time it was time to take her home. I was looking at all the staff at that hospital and I said, "Are you people crazy? You're gonna let us take this infant home? I don't know what to do. I just met her. How am I going to, and just thinking this is the mentality. I'm driving 30 miles an hour on the highway and calling everybody crazy as you're just overprotective. You don't know what to do, but you have to dive in and get into parenthood. That's the way it is.
That's one of the things I literally wrote about in the book. Is
Yeah.
I think that mentality, that thought is shared by all parents, but we
Yeah.
don't all discuss it with each other. You just assume, especially when you're younger, you see like parents, or when we were kids, and you just thought your parents knew everything, had it
Right.
all together, and that was it. And then you have your kid, yeah, and you're like, are you seriously gonna let me walk out of here with this thing? Like I'm like, I am ill qualified to look after this child at best. And they're like, no, let's just check that they're in the car seat. Yep, they're in. Okay, bye. You're like, okay, I
Incredible.
guess I'll figure it out.
And we did.
Yeah.
And we did, and it just by the seat of our pants, and we do the absolute best we can, and so then you leave nonfiction and you go into fiction, Earth Invaders. So I mean, where's the genesis of this? Did you storyboard? Did you start from the end and create a beginning?
Personally, I don't like to storyboard. I know
Huh,
every writer has their own style, but for me, the journey of writing and what I enjoy is that I don't know where it's going to go, and I
amazing.
love that. I just literally start writing, and then I'm kind of figuring out what's going to happen to these characters as we go. I mean, the genesis of that book too is like, so with my fatherhood book, I thought here's like a nonfiction comedic book for adults. But then I was thinking, I've read stories to my children their entire life. I don't read as much to them anymore about this last year because now they're 9 and 11. They're avid readers themselves, and it's more they're kind of done with dad reading to them now. But I
Right.
thought, you know what? It would be kind of fun to give them something that they could read, that because they're not going to read fatherhood. It's not geared toward them. There's nothing in a child's not going to want that. So I thought, why don't I write something that would they might find entertaining, and then I don't know how ideas generate. One day I don't even know what I was doing. It just popped into me. I think it was because there was something to do with UFOs, to be honest. And then I
Mm.
thought, wouldn't it be funny if aliens came here to invade us, but they were so tiny that they were impotent to invade us, and then it just kind of rolled from there. And that's basically what the book is about. These aliens who are like, we're gonna come, we're gonna take over Earth, we're gonna enslave them. It's gonna be great. These Earthlings are idiots, and they get here, and they discover that they're about the size of ants and can't really do anything to us. And all of a sudden, it's how do we get out of Earth alive? Yeah.
Amazing. How long did it take you to write that?
Oh, I want to say it probably took me at least half a year to write it, and then probably another half of a year to edit it because again, editing's kind of painstaking, and it, I basically want my book to read in a way that entertains me. So if
Mm.
I start to reread what I've written, and at any point I sound like, oh, I'm droning on here, or I've lost interest myself, edit, delete button is your best friend as an author. That was one of the best tips I ever got was don't don't be in love with anything you wrote. Delete everything that you think doesn't need to be there. So, and that ends up a book that could be like, 100,000 words gets edited down to 75,000 words to try
Mm.
to make it the best it can be. It's kind of like doing stand up. I used to do a
Yeah.
little bit of stand up comedy, and it's the same kind of thing. You take this idea and then you whittle it down to something that's just this is going to keep someone's attention. This is going to be funny. You can't. It starts with maybe 5 minutes, and then that edits down to 1 minute because you had 4 minutes of just kind of
Fluff.
storytelling that wasn't so entertaining.
Mm.
But so yeah, the writing process takes quite a while for me, more because I'm kind of anal about really editing it down and trying to punch it up the best I can.
You tell a story how you were on an older computer, you accidentally deleted a large section and
Oh yeah.
forced you into autosave.
Totally. This was on my old laptop that didn't have it had an old version of Word, and so it was just gone. And I was like, "Oh my god, I think I like sometimes I'm like, it's perfect. I'll never write it better than this." And I get so irritated. And then turns out it probably wasn't, and
Mm.
I was probably overreacting. But yeah, now I leave on. I've got obviously new version. I leave on autosave, so every single keystroke is saved. If I accidentally do something like that, I can just hit undo. Also, in the process, I I panicked when I did that. I totally forgot about the undo button.
Yeah,
So
it
then I
kills it.
start doing all sorts of stuff to the point where I'd gone way past the point of being able to undo it to that stage. Oh man.
It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned stand-up comedy. I mean, that's did you get on stage often? You said you bombed and it's a that's a tough undertaking.
Oh, it is, man. So this was around the same time that I started writing those book proposals and sending them off to my buddy.
Mm.
And I think it was him or someone he worked with said, Matt should do stand-up comedy. And then I'd never thought of that before. And I'm like, well, maybe I should. So
Mm.
so I started going out to like open mics to start with. Um, and I remember my first set. I only had 3 minutes on stage. I wrote what I thought was hilarious material. I'm like, this
Sure.
is going to be awesome. Everyone's going to love me. I got up on stage and got one laugh in 3 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, this is tough. We really need to rework this. So that I kept going out more. I kept, trying to edit things down, make it a little more concise. And then I got to the point where, I went out and one night I was on stage, I had a 10-minute set and it was amazing. The energy in the room, I killed it that night. I thought I'm amazing now. I
Mm.
just
Mm.
killed it for 10 minutes. I go out the next weekend, I do a set, and this set I'm doing on basically being a husband and father. So it's about wives, it's about kids, and it bombs.
Mm.
And again, I'm like, I thought this was funny, and then I realized I'm still learning how to do this. I looked at the room. The room was full of like 18-year-olds. I'm doing bits
Uh,
on kids and wives to a room full of 18-year-olds. And so that was another learning process on you got to play to the crowd. This stuff may have been funny, but it's not funny to
mm.
18-year-olds.
Mm.
So, but then I stand up started getting too difficult for me to do. I live in the suburbs. I'd have to go downtown Vancouver, which, rush hour could be, say, 45 minutes. But I had two young kids at the time,
Ah.
a wife, a full time job. And then I started realizing what I enjoy doing more is actually writing this stuff. I
Mm.
enjoy that. I do enjoy getting on stage. It feels amazing to make someone laugh. But then again, it's like I said to you, it's about finding balance, and I can't do everything. There's not enough time, especially. especially once you have children, if you're trying to be involved in their lives. And so then that got put on the back burner. Every once in a while, I still think, hey, when I'm 50 and they're away at university, maybe, but
I'm back.
who knows?
There's a fine line between, trying to make people laugh with what you know and also knowing your audience. I remember hearing, I think it was Jamie Foxx, when he got a certain level of stardom, he started writing jokes about, having, 60,000 square feet houses, and it wasn't relating because this is what he got a lot of money and this is what he was having. Probably thought it was funny, but it wasn't relating at all to the audience at all. So he had, he got told, okay, I got to go back and I got to really think about what's funny and what's not. I respect comedians so much. It's tough what they do.
It is hard. And like, yeah, to his point, when you start spending lots of time in comedy clubs, you start to see a lot of the comics making very similar jokes that
Mm,
aren't necessarily relatable like that. Or there's a lot of jokes on travel,
mm,
spending time in airports, spending time in airplanes. But the general public doesn't travel very much, doesn't
right.
spend very much time in airports and airplanes. So lots of those jokes don't always land because they're describing their world, hotels, airports, but that's not the average person's world. So yeah, it's like you said, Jamie Foxx figured that out. Oh, I've got to kind of cater to my audience here a bit too.
And
Doing jokes about being super rich isn't
yeah,
funny if
yeah,
no one's super rich.
and it could also be a little resentful too, right? It's like,
Right.
oh boy, I don't relate to that at all. In high school, I didn't know anything, but thought I knew everything. I still don't know anything, but I am now acutely aware of the fact.
That sounds something like what a genius probably wrote.
Yeah, you posted that. Yeah, recently. It's just generally true.
It's how I was feeling in the moment. I feel like, and I'm sure most adults can relate as they age. I just turned 41, so I'm kind of, I guess you'd call middle age now.
Sure.
But I feel like the more I learn, I'm an avid reader. I'm so curious about the world, and the more I read and the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything about anything. It's kind of crazy. And then you transport us back to when we're in high school. Man, you knew everything about everything.
Thought we did. Thought we
Yeah,
did.
there wasn't a thing you weren't an expert on, in your own mind. At least that was me in high school. I'm sure that was most guys.
I mean, I'm 55 now, Matt. I have so many more questions than I have answers, more ever in my life. Heat wave coming in heat wave coming in hotter than my youngest son's questionable fashion sense. Do the kids read these?
No, no, they don't. But that is true. You should see what this kid dresses himself in
Is that right?
sometimes. Yes, yesterday he came out and he had like six pairs of socks overlapped on top of each other because he thought
Nice.
it was funny to make his feet look fat.
My goodness. If you had the ability to change the healthcare system, what would you do?
Oh man, this is something I could talk about all day.
I
First
know.
of all,
I know.
but number one, the number one greatest thing that we could do is to focus on food as medicine. Honestly, this is the greatest revolution we could make in healthcare would be to focus on food as medicine. And by that, I mean focusing on subsidizing good whole foods instead of subsidizing junk food, which is what we do, especially in the United States.
Yes.
Junk food is massively subsidized, and it's subsidized from right from the farmer. Corn farming and wheat farming is largely. I don't know if a lot of Americans are aware, but it's very largely government subsidized. So
Mhm.
then that drives the cost of that product down so that so for instance, like corn syrup is in everything instead of sugar. The reason it is because it's cheaper. Is the companies say like Coca-Cola, why would they buy sugar when they can buy a sweetener corn syrup that's the same price? But what we do, there's been plenty of studies done on this around the world. If we can drive people's body weights down to whatever an appropriate body weight would be for your frame, and you can maintain that, your chances of being hospitalized, your chances of having morbidity or mortality, so being sick and or dying, drop astronomically. And so then what that does is not only does it make you feel better, like personally feel better, you're able to do more things, your joints hurt a bit less, you have a bit more energy. But what that does is it gets a large percentage of people out of hospital. It,
Mm.
and which then drives costs down.
Hmm.
We don't need to spend as much money. I know it sounds simple when I say it. It's very complicated, but that would be if I could work in health policy and help influence health policy, it would be to do as much as we can to incentivize and encourage people to eat good, whole, healthy foods, fruits and vegetables, healthy meats. But I understand that that's not where we are right now because the average person doesn't have enough money to buy whatever they want to buy. They
Mm.
really have to be specific with their budget. And so you're going to buy things that are the best bang for your buck. And the way that we've done things, and like I say, it's more in America than it is in some other countries.
Mm.
But Canada, where I'm at here, we follow America's lead on a lot of things. And so our society is not astronomically different than the United States. And it's so if you go there to the grocery store and you have $20, you got a family to feed, you're like, what's the best bang for my buck? You're not necessarily thinking what's the healthiest thing.
Right.
And so if we could somehow work to change that, that would be the greatest. That would be the biggest revolution in healthcare we could possibly do. And it's not even healthcare; it's through food.
Yeah, it's a wonderful shift on when I think healthcare, I think okay, medicine, I think doctor, hospital. The thing is, we've got to solve the problem beforehand. The three pillars I always see are, like you say, nutrition, some kind of exercise and sleep. These are things that we should all getting healthy. The problem is, like you say, Matt, healthy people don't necessarily make money for these companies. The
No,
system is backwards. They make money by
absolutely.
selling drugs and curing symptoms versus the actual problem. But food
That's what
is
you hit it
medicine.
the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
That is exactly the problem. Symptom over problem.
Yes.
I read recently oh no, sorry, it was a podcast I listened to. This physician, he's a
Mm.
Canadian physician in the United States. Peter Attia is his name, and he had a podcast that I listened to an episode, and he was talking about this recurrent dream nightmare thing he was having, where there were eggs being thrown off a building, and he kept having to go and catch those eggs. And he said he just kept having this dream over and over again, and it was driving him insane because he's a medical doctor and he's trying to, I guess, stop that egg from cracking, you know?
Mm.
And then he all of a sudden had an epiphany moment where he's like, instead of trying to catch these eggs, why don't I just go up on the building and stop the dude who's throwing the eggs?
Mm.
That to me was an excellent analogy for healthcare. We need to go to the root of the
Hmm.
problem. We don't need we're right now we stand at the finish line, and then we're like, oh, now we treat people once they're very sick. They've got diabetes, and we're giving them pills instead of going to the starting line and trying to make it so that we don't get to that point. But we've built a system where we kind of not only encourage but almost force people down that path. And so we really need to just change how we do everything, but mainly change that food system. If only we could just snap our fingers and make that happen, Joe.
We've got to reverse it somehow so they can make money by getting people healthy. It's just because this country is driven by money, man. It's just this
Yep.
the way it is. I just it's when anything doubtful happens, I just say, just follow the money. I mean, that's why decisions get made. Even to that point. I started my business in the '90s, and I'm a little bit older than you, and I wasn't paying attention to myself. Man, I stopped playing soccer because I was working 14 hours a day. I stopped playing tennis, and I was eating cheap food that was quick but got
Yep.
got it done so I wouldn't be hungry anymore. And I got myself up to about 340 pounds. And the doctor, my daughter was just born, and the doctor said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see her graduate. So I spent the next 6 7 months losing about 130 pounds. And when I ask people this, when I tell people this, excuse me, I can always see it in their eyes. What's the secret? You've got to have, and there's no secret, Matt. My goodness, we just talked about it here. I ate well and I exercise. I say the answer is discipline. That's it.
Yes.
That's how I
100%.
lost the weight. Discipline. So I wonder, given your background, how does discipline play a role in your life?
Yeah. I mean, as I've aged, I've gotten much more disciplined. Like you were saying, I used to the same thing when I was younger, in my early 20s. You just want something quick. You drive through McDonald's, you grab it, it's quick, it's cheap. And then I started realizing I was an athlete when I was, a young man in junior high and high school. Um, and then I got in my 20s and I started realizing I'd try to do something that I used to do, and I couldn't catch my breath. And I'm
Mm,
like, what's happening? Because I stopped exercising. I stopped playing sports, like you said, and I was eating out all the time. Young single men, I think, probably have the worst diets. They don't have their mom cooking for them anymore. They
right.
don't have a family to look after. They're just like, let's just get this food done quick. I'm hungry, and then let's do something else. And so, to me, it was building structure, was discipline. I realized I was a bit heavier than I wanted to be.
Mm,
Um, I was doing, and it was little changes. So like one thing, I was like, I'm getting a little rounder in the midsection, but I would come home from work and have one or two beers. And then I'm like, one day I'm like, why am I doing this? Why? I don't need this. And then you start thinking, this is just empty calories.
mm.
So I just stopped having weekday beers. I'm like, I'll have beer on the weekend if I'm hanging out with friends, social setting. Let's stop doing this. Within 6 weeks, probably with no other change, I dropped 10 or 15 pounds
Yeah.
just by doing that. So then that one little change let me see, oh, if I make another tiny change, what will happen? And then I read this book that really inspired me by David Goggins. I'm not sure if you're aware of
Yes,
him.
I do. Of course. Yes.
Oh
The
man.
father of discipline.
Oh man, that if you want to get disciplined,
Yeah.
you read that book. Like I'd recommend to anybody, read a David Goggins book. And so what I realized though, what I took away from him was that I wake up early naturally in the morning,
Yeah.
but I would just lay in bed and wait till my alarm was going to go off or wait till I actually had to get up to go to work. What he kind of inspired me to do is, why am I laying there? Let's
Mm,
get up and let's get after it. So then what I started doing is I would wake up. Sometimes I wake up at 5:30. I'm usually awake by 6. It's just my natural body clock. So let's just get up and go work out. I put when I used to go to the gym. When I had kids, I realized that's hard to get to the gym.
mm,
So I just got some weights. I put them in my garage. I would get up in the morning. So then I started getting up, and my routine now is I'm very, very disciplined.
hmm,
And building a routine just means doing something over and over until it becomes your habit. So my habit now is get up, get after it. Get up. I
mm,
like to get a sweat on. I personally feel way better throughout the day if I get something hard done right off the bat. And
mm,
that's, a bit of exercise, either pushing my heart rate high or trying to, lift some heavy weights. It just feels like I've accomplished something and then I feel set up for success. That's that to me is how you build discipline. Is you have a goal, you struggle through it, but then it becomes habit. You can turn anything into like a habit. You could almost say it's like an addiction, almost, in that it's just something that I feel like I have to do every day. But I think anyone can do that with any goal they have, even if it's writing. Writing, I want to be a writer. How do I do that? Let's try to write every day. Literally, even if it's just 30 seconds. Hey, I opened my computer. I wrote a sentence. I feel like I have no ideas today. At least I did something. But starting things is the key to being
Mm.
disciplined for anything. It's like start something. You never know what's going to happen. I don't feel like working out most of the time. I'd rather just lay in bed. Tying my shoes sometimes takes tying my shoes. I'm like, why am I doing this? And
Mm.
then once you start, all of a sudden you're in it. Same as like say writing, the discipline of writing. I might be like, I'd rather just watch TV right now. But I'll open my laptop. Let's open up where I left off in this book. And like I said, sometimes it's maybe 30 seconds, but then sometimes it's like inspiration hits. And the next thing you know, I've been writing for 2 hours and and I just feel like I really accomplished something. So I mean, yeah, discipline to me is set that goal. What is it that you'd like to achieve? And start really small. Like I said, the weight loss thing, it could be Coke. Lots of people drink pops every day. The weight loss thing, pops, man, I mean, we all know they're horrible for us, but
Yeah.
what people don't realize is how much better they'll feel
Oh,
if
yeah.
they stop drinking it. And if you just substitute, you go, okay, my goal, I want to lose some weight, just baby step it. I'm going to drink no pop during the week.
Right.
You could do that. I don't think you should deprive yourself of anything that you love 100% because you're setting yourself up for failure. But if you go, well, instead of 7 days a week of it, I'll do 2 days a week of it. I think everyone can live with that. And you'll start to like, honestly, like my beer thing, you'll just be like, oh, I've lost some weight without doing anything, just by not doing something, you know?
Absolutely. If you substitute it, that was my one of my big things. I drank a lot of, like you said, soda. I drank a lot, and I substituted it with green tea. That was my substitute. And unsweet, I'd make it myself, cold. I'd brew it, and I'd ice it, and then I eventually just went to water. But that, I mean, you're cutting thousands of calories out a day. Maybe there's 200, over 200, I believe, in a can.
Yeah.
And I was throwing back many of those a day. And just that simple move, incremental steps, and sticking with it. And the 80-20 rule, which I think is pretty much what you're saying, 80% of the time you're eating, drinking what you're supposed to, and 20% you relax a little bit. Nobody's saying I didn't stop eating hamburgers. I love hamburgers. I just didn't have 5. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah,
you know,
totally.
I had 1, and I still like French fries, but I just ate less. So it's very, very simple. And I like what you said about discipline, structure, and routine, which are very, very synonymous, I feel, with discipline.
100%. It's anything you want to do, you need to start doing it and struggle. It's going to be a struggle. Like I said, say working out before work. It was a
Mm,
struggle. I'd never done it before. But then all of a sudden, it just becomes a habit. It's something I have to do. This is just what I do. As same as like I have to uh, take my kids to soccer practice. I have to work out. It's just another I have to thing in the day. I do it, and then it's your routine. But like you said, say that 80-20 thing. I like that because even with say working out, don't do it every day. If
right.
you don't want to, at least take a day where you don't. So then you're like, oh, today I didn't work out, and today I'm gonna eat my cheeseburger and my fries and have my Coke because that's what I want. But just when you get in that habit, this discipline, it works the in the opposite way, like what I was just saying. If you build that habit of every day I get out of work, I drive to McDonald's on my way home, I get my burger, fries, and Coke, and then I go home. That's your habit,
The
that's
habit.
your routine.
Yeah.
But that's one that's harming you. So you need to work on not doing that. And it might be hard to do it the first few days. Drive past McDonald's instead of pulling into it.
Mm,
That's where your discipline comes in. I'm going to drive past it. I'm not going to do that. And you could substitute it with something. If you're like me, like say when I'm feeling like lazy and I just want to have a quick bite to eat, and especially if I don't have any kids to look after when I was a younger man, honestly, there's really quick but healthy things you could do. You could just scramble some eggs.
yeah.
You know, scrambling eggs is quicker than waiting in the McDonald's drive-through lineup, but unbelievably healthier, and it still fills you up with good stuff. There's some really quick things that are eggs are also cheap, right? So there's some still quick cheap things you can do and be like, well, instead of waiting there in 5 minutes, I can make dinner if I just like click down a couple pieces of whole wheat toast and scramble a bunch of eggs. Done. You know? Like
Very
I
true.
don't know. There's always, and then it's like you can have, if you still have that sweet tooth, we'll change that. Maybe get something that's like some say dark chocolate that you can tell yourself is a health food, because
Mm,
yeah, man, there's a lot of actually good like vitamins and minerals in that. Like there's, so you could be like, that's kind of good for me, and then have like a little piece of that, and then you got some kind of candy after. You're still feeling like, well, I got something sweet after, but then you'll feel good. You feel like I said, when making those changes, what people don't realize is how good you start feeling. Like if you drink sodas every day, I'm sure like you probably had a stomach that didn't
mm.
feel the best sometimes inside. And when you started drinking less, my guess would be that all of a sudden your just insides felt a little better. Like your stomach probably felt a little bit better. But you don't necessarily realize that it could be better until you feel it. And then you're like, oh wait, oh, I actually kind of been making myself sick and now I feel a bit better.
It's amazing because the human body will adapt, and then I just get used to the pain. I get used to running out of breath going upstairs, and then you start losing it, and you get to where you're supposed to be, and it's like, oh, this is okay. Your body's rewarding you now. This is the way it was supposed to be, and it is very rewarding. I was at 46-inch waist, man, and I got down to 32. I mean,
Oh man,
just
good for you.
it
That's
just didn't
amazing.
it just didn't know. Yeah, yeah, just didn't notice it. What motivates you, Matt Trenholm?
Oh man, you know, I honestly just want to somehow leave this world a better place.
Mm,
I haven't necessarily figured that out yet, but I want to somehow leave a mark. And whether that's just on, I made a few people feel good about themselves when I hung out with them, I made someone laugh when they read my book, or maybe I can get to a point in health policy where I can actually make a big impact, which in my healthcare career is my goal. I don't know
mm,
how to get there, but I keep trying. You try to build connections, I meet people, you bring ideas forward. I get to talk with people like you, Joe. Like
mm,
this is, you know, connecting with people, sharing ideas. That's what it's about. I mean, everyone wants to feel like they've done something with their life, and I think that's kind of the thing that I'm endlessly chasing. But like I said, I sometimes don't know what I necessarily want or how to get there.
mm.
Just keep trying. You just got to keep trying.
Yeah, so I talked to somebody recently. Every second we're practicing at getting better at who we are. I think that's maybe I'm paraphrasing something like that, but I think it's apropos.
100%. Oh
How
yeah.
do you measure success?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to measure success, right? The most common way people like to do is dollar signs. Dollar signs is success. But the older I get, I realize dollar signs isn't success. Like, sure, there is a huge feeling of success if you feel stable and secure. That's a massive success. But I don't think that when we say, "Oh, this guy's really successful because he's made $100 million, and this guy's not as successful because he made $1 million." Well, that that to me isn't success anymore. That's just he was financially successful in some endeavor. But to me, success is being a good person, and what I mean by that is success as a father is raising children that, first of all, people want those kids around them.
Mm,
So if your children, if you have the kids that when you walk in a room, everyone scatters, I don't think you're being very successful at
mm,
parenthood.
mm,
So it's about it. So as a father, it's about bringing children into the world, raising kids that can fit into the world, know how to fit into the world, and might be able to pave their own path. To me, I will find success as a father if my children find something that they're really interested in and then pursue that avenue, which to me is something totally different than how I was raised. In the 80s, it was just like I was raised in the 80s, and then I was a teenager in the 90s, and it was more like get a job, pay your bills. There was no one was telling me, "Hey Matt, there's people who like chase their dreams and do fun things like writing." No, it was you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer.
Hmm.
I was basically told you should be a lawyer, and that was my goal leaving high school. Uh, it didn't turn out that way. Turns
Mm.
out I don't think I would have been right for that job, but it was just you need one of these titles. So success is setting your children up for success, setting them up to be people who can fit into society, who can chase their dreams. And personal success for me is staying healthy and continuing to try to achieve my goals. I'm trying one of my goals is to keep writing and to hopefully be able to be able to earn some income from writing to allow me to write more things and keep honing my craft and
Mm.
keep getting better and keep entertaining people. And another goal of mine is to be able to move into an area of healthcare where I can really help with health policy. Because to me, that is a passion of mine. And I don't think a lot of people in healthcare truly have, like, I say, zoomed out enough to see the whole picture. Why are we here? Why is healthcare so expensive? Why do we have so many people in the hospital? The solution isn't throwing more pills at it. The solution isn't having patients who take 25 different medications a day.
Mm.
The solution is making it so that they don't get there in the first place, helping set people up for success. So, I success to me would be if I could do anything to help improve healthcare, if I can entertain any person, and if my kids turn out to be adults and they still want to talk to me, that'll be pretty successful.
Mm. I recently heard somebody say success is when your adult kids still want to hang out with you.
Totally. I could completely agree with that.
Yeah, because unfortunately we don't see that a lot.
I have one of my little dreams is that when my kids are adults, we could go to the pub and have a beer together.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a goal right there.
Oh man, I was so excited when we agreed to do this, and it was great talking to you. How can anybody get in touch with you that wants to?
Sure. Well, I'm not huge in social media. Maybe I should be. Maybe that should be a goal of mine to get better there. But I'm
Mm.
on Twitter or X now.
Yes, Twitter X.
Um, X. My handle is at Matty Trenholm. Um, so MattyTrenholm. I'm also on LinkedIn. I've got a lot of connections there, and I like connecting with people there. And that's my LinkedIn is my full name. It's Matthew James Trenholm. Matthew James Trenholm. Those are good ways to reach out if anyone wants to connect. You can also check out my books. You can find them on tons of places. The most common place is Amazon. Um, you just Google under my author name, Matthew Trenholm, or type in the title of my books. There's Earth Invaders and there's Fatherhood, like motherhood, but for men.
Make sure to put those all in the show notes, Matt. It was a great pleasure talking with you. When I get out to the Western Canadian, British Columbia area, I'll make sure we get a beer together.
100%. Hit me up, Joe.
Thank you so much. You be well.
Thanks a lot. You too. I appreciate you being here. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.